It's not about like making good games or making bad games or making good stories or making bad stories. He just wants to be free from seeing minorities. That's just kind of it. Yeah. So it's this guy, right? Basically this. His name is Synthetic Man, right? I think, was Elden Ring in like the worst games of the year? If I forget. Anyways. Is this one The Last of Us? No, this isn't The Last of Us. This is the game that's like Until Dawn, but worse. Forget what that was. And then he made God of War Ragnarok, 4th worst. And then Horizon Zero Dawn was the 3rd worst. Or Horizon New Horizons or something. New Horizon Leaf Horizon Dawn Horizon Leaf Robo Dino, whatever that was. Apparently the new Dead Space was the 2nd worst game of the year. Is this right? This is the new Dead Space, is it not? This is the new old Dead Space, is this not? Or what is this? Does anybody? I didn't play this.
As a female protagonist, unlike many other modern games, but that's about where my praise ends. It's $100 million garbage. Well, shit, it's literally pitch black. I can't see. Good thing I don't need to see, because you just hold left, hold right, hold left, hold right, hold left, or hold right.
Yeah. Isn't he one of those anti-SJW channels? Well, I had no clue. I was just clicking through videos, and then I saw this, and I'm like, what the heck? Oh, is this Callisto? This may be Callisto Protocol. Anyways. And then he put, like, apparently, to him, God of War Ragnarok is worse than the new Pokemon. What was this, Scarlet and Violet or something? PP and Poo Poo Pokemon that released?
Listen, I'm just as shocked as you are. I never thought I would put a fucking Pokemon game, a modern Pokemon game, on my best games of 2022. Especially since the Pokemon Company has now given in to ESG, and if you've played this game, the influence is incredibly...
No! Black people! Gay people! No! Oh, dude. How could this be? Not the League of Letters. Not the Gestapo.
Obvious. This is easily the most ugly character designs in Pokemon history, and not just ugly, but cartoonishly diverse, including not just several different skin tone options for every single generic NPC type, but having a fucking female bodybuilder as one of the normal NPCs that you see dozens of over the course of the game. Literally having shoulders twice as wide as her hips. And then you have Grusha, the ice gym leader, who is a man despite clearly being drawn like a woman. Rika, who is a woman drawn as a man and called non-binary by the community. The ghost gym leader is an elderly black woman who fucking spits raps, dude. If this was any other time in history, that'd be called blatantly racist. And then, of course, you know about the game's various bugs and performance issues. Now, I mostly played in offline mode, so formula was an absolute improvement.
Anyways, so yeah, I thought this was strange. Oh no, my bad. Elden Ring, he made Game of the Year. Sorry. Anyways, so I thought this was like weird. And I was like, okay then, that's strange. But then it got worse, because I watched another one where he said escapism is dead. And what is ESG? I have no clue. I have no idea what ESG means. And then he made another one that's called escapism is dead. And apparently what he means by escapism is that gay people exist.
Just become soulless cash grabs. They're impressive at face value, but real fans of the original pretending to be centrist or right-leaning attempt to gaslight us by debating what the term woke even means. To me, woke represents any political messaging, subliminal or not, that pushes these modern progressive ideals. This covers a pretty vast spectrum, which is why there's been so much pushback from these so-called centrists. And look,
woke is everything I disagree with. If I disagree with it and it's from the left, it's woke. And if I don't disagree with it and it's not from the left, it's not woke, and woke is bad.
Personal definition is broad on purpose, because sometimes subliminal messaging is even more important than the stuff vomited in your face. The thing is, we have now become so used to these devs pushing harder and harder that now when some of the more anticipated games have dialed it back a step or two, people are now pretending it doesn't count as woke anymore, right? I've talked about the Overton window shifting a bunch of times. I'm getting tired of using that term, but the point is, we have become so used to the absurd, nearly parody tier leftist crap like Velma or The Last of Us Part 2 that when something like God of War Ragnarok or the Dead Space remake shows up, people are debating whether or not it's woke at all. Even when those very same changes were done to something like Rings of Power, right? Like race-swapping characters or making some of the female characters absurdly powerful, even better than men. If it counts as woke for TV, why is it not woke for video?
Aren't they literally magic? Aren't they literally, like in a lot of games, aren't characters literally magic? You know what I mean? Like there's a reason, well, Freya should be more powerful than like a lot of men. Isn't she literally queen of the Valkyries? Whatever, she's like leader of the Valkyries. She should be stronger than damn near everyone, if I'm going to be honest. And that's not even something that the devs even have to put in. I think just like story-wise in like Norse mythology, shouldn't she be like wildly, absurdly powerful even among the Aesir? She's queen of the gods or some shit. She's queen of the Valkyries, which are the battle warrior women, if I remember correctly. Vikings and their woke agenda. Listen, I wanted to make a sort of like long form, like a pre-recorded, highly edited video on something like this, because I noticed something that's interesting, right? Is that games aren't, or like media just kind of isn't allowed to be bad anymore. Things aren't allowed to be bad. Things aren't allowed to be like, stories aren't allowed to be bad. Stories aren't allowed to be like kind of half-assed. Stories are not allowed to be anything along these lines. Stories are either good or they're woke, and other people say that they're good and they make a lot of money, but they're not because they're woke or something, right? It's just strange because a lot of them, it comes from because like if a story has like minorities in it in any like meaningful way, and their minority status is in any way important to their character or the story, now it's woke, right? And if the story is bad, it's not just bad because the story just wasn't that strong to begin with. It was bad because apparently the devs needed to spend every single waking moment crafting that one minority character's personality, and somehow that's how game development works. So everybody else wasn't doing anything. The entire game studio was all making this one character and completely neglecting all of the rest of the game or of the movie or something. And so that's why this movie is bad. It's bad because they put a minority in it, not because it's just simply like it was like poor like source material to begin with, or there was crunch or something. It just, things aren't allowed to just be bad anymore. They have to be bad for like some political reason, or like, yeah. And even like with us, some things just aren't allowed to be bad anymore, right? It's either go woke, go broke, or go fast, lose cash. Things just can't be bad. Or things just can't be good, right? They're not, things aren't like bad or good anymore, which I think can be a bit problematic. You know what I mean? Anyways.
Video games. Well, that's a subject for a different video. The point is, when I see this stuff, especially when it's a remake, and obviously what
is this? Welcome aboard. What is this? Concordance extract. What is this?
Subject for a different video. The point is, when I see this stuff,
Biological Aesthetics Center?
Especially when it's a remake, and it obviously wasn't in the original, then obviously that's going to bother me because it was a change made on purpose by developers to push subliminal
What's the problem? Minorities?
Messaging, like the all-gender bathroom in Dead Space Remake. Unisex and all-gender are not the same fucking thing, especially when they use the pedestrian icon that obviously represents trans people, being like half male, half female, or whatever. If it just said unisex,
transgender.
I honestly would not have given a fuck. And then there seems to be a different problem, and I don't know if this was due to YouTube policy changes around what is considered racism, but I've noticed more and more that a lot of people are completely fine with race swapping under certain contexts. I don't really have enough data here to give you an answer as to why this is, but again, something that was complained about with Rings of Power is now completely fine with God of War Ragnarok, despite the fact that they're both based on white culture. And I am in no interest to debate what white means or what culture means. The fact that anyone's even
Yeah, I know you're not. You know, a lot of people who think like you don't like to think very often. They think very hard about those things, I would imagine. 100%. I'm not in the mood to question my preconceived notions or things that I simply just believe or challenge my opinions in any meaningful way. I'm right. Okay. All right then. Oh, and if you just want to use like white as in just like kind of like a catch-all term for kind of like Eastern European or just like Central and like Eastern European countries, then there were black people and dark-skinned people who were there. You did not know. Africa is kind of literally right there. I'm not sure if anybody has noticed this, but wait here. I'm not sure if anybody has noticed this yet. It's pretty crazy, but when it comes to Europe and Africa, they're kind of close. They're like pretty close if you think about it. Like, they may not be like the closest. You know, I would imagine two atoms are closer than Europe and Africa. I would imagine that probably your arms are more closely attached than Europe and Africa, but like they're kind of right there. And then there's like Saudi Arabia and Turkey. You know, like the Roman Empire and everything was like a lot of this. You know what? You know, there was like a black Roman emperor, right? Spain had native black people for a long time. Yeah, that's true. Moors were there. Anyway, it's just like, boy, I can't believe brown people they allowed brown people in my game where I was supposed to only see. Also, I'm sorry. I just personally think it's a little silly to be as a magical little boy who's using his magical little boy arrows with a magical mythical girl fighting a giant magic throwing pot hugging giant in a magical cavern to go find a magical item and be like, I can't believe they put brown people in this game. I'm sorry. That's the thing that throws it off. Brown people and maybe even a little lesbian kiss, which honestly is unforgivable.
Trying to debate those terms proves they're using the exact same tactics that the left does. And look, I'm not going to turn this into a fucking drama video, so I will end it there. But just keep an eye out for these anti-SJW types in the near future, because I feel like the tide is shifting once again on YouTube, where in a year or two, you might not even be allowed to talk about this shit anymore. My channel will probably be shadow banned. But
I'm going to be canceled for saying the things that I say. Listen, I'm on the cutting edge, okay? I'm against the system. I'm against the matrix. And they'll take me down.
The moment, I would just advise.
What drama? I don't know. I think he has drama with minorities. I think that's the. I think that's it. He's having beef with just minorities as a concept.
Close attention to the consistency of the creators that you enjoy watching, the consistency of their views specifically. This is not in any way me trying to start some kind of purity spiral to slowly radicalize people over time. I'm completely fine with my viewers having different views than me. It happens all the time. My like-dislike ratios are far below average for any media content reviewer. No, what I'm doing is to pad out Square Enix's ESG score. If they hadn't gotten funding from BlackRock, there's no way this would have ever seen the light of day. It's obvious that they had no idea what they actually wanted to make as a game. So seeing as the likely lengthy pre-production hadn't produced anything worthy of making a game, that's where ESG comes along and is like, okay, you need to have a black female protagonist on top of a culturally diverse fantasy world with no explanation as to how those people got there or how a librarian can be morbidly obese, and of course everyone has to be ugly as well. That goes without saying.
Can a librarian be obese? What? Do you have any people who've like been librarians or worked with librarians before? Is being a librarian like a physically exertive task? Do you have to? Does he mean book like somebody who makes books or somebody who keeps books? I didn't think bookkeeping was that physically demanding of a thing. That as well as like wasn't especially back in like the day obesity was seen as something that's like kind of giga based, because if you were fat, that means that you're rich because you had enough food to eat a lot. So people were kind of like, weren't people like kind of shooting for being a little chunky? Because it meant that you were like well fed and like pretty well off. Yeah, like being obese was for rich people. Don't you think, wait, what the fuck is he talking? Somebody who has the ability to be around such a luxury like books and be like a bookkeeper, you have to be pretty high up in society. In like a olden sort of like idea of the world like this, most people can't even fucking read, let alone know what a let alone have been around books. Okay, whatever. Wouldn't like a bookkeeper really be like an aristocrat? Especially like a really big bookkeeper? Anyways.
Saying, so we can give you millions of dollars to make this inevitable flop, and so we're given Frey, who is an incredibly sanitized 20-year-old orphan, who, if you haven't played the game and only heard clips of her dialogue, you would think, well, she's not a stereotype, at the very least, except for the fact that she's committed 3 felonies, has spent a considerable amount of money.
Huh? She's black, she's not a stereotype? Anyways, she commits crime. Yo, what?
On sneakers, despite living in a shithole. She works for a gang, and honestly, the list goes on. I covered it in my review if you're curious. So it's funny that her dialogue is written more like some kind of quirky Marvel movie mixed with a millennial white woman trying to write what Zoomers are like these days, and it just doesn't work in the least. And so to bring this back around to the escapism
okay, then. Wait.
Person being brought into some magical world and you get superpowers. And so on the surface level, you think, oh shit, that might actually be the perfect escapist story because it's made for normies to pretend that they live in a fantasy world and have superpowers. Now here's the problem with that. 1, you need to have a blank slate protagonist to make this even feasible. Or at least a protagonist that serves as a male or female power fantasy. So that even though we couldn't picture ourselves literally being this person, at least we can look to them as a sort of idealized version of ourselves, which is how heroes used to be written. Now so many hero characters are horribly flawed, and sometimes those flaws aren't even intentional, to make those characters feel more relatable, where in reality, it feels like the opposite for somebody like me, because I don't want to be this super flawed person. I don't want to be a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu either, but that certainly would be a step up from being completely unlikable, like Frey is. Another example of a game that kind of ruined my—
Has anybody played Forspoken? Is she unlikable, or does... I don't know. Oh, come on. Yeah, my big thing is that it's kind of strange how a lot of these like type of reviewers, they kind of position their own opinions as like near fact, right? And what I mean kind of like that is that it's not like a game just isn't for me or a writing style isn't for me. The writing style is bad and the game is bad, kind of objectively. Be able to point to some like objective meaning for them to just be bad. I just cannot. It's not like, so yeah, like it's two interesting things. 1, media isn't allowed to be bad. And 2, if it is bad, it's not bad because I just don't like it. It's bad because it's simply objectively terrible. Right, that's been a thing for Heroes for a long time. Yeah, so like, I don't know. Like, what are some of the most popular stories going around? I mean, one of the biggest ones, honestly, was Mob Psycho. Dude, Mob is an incredibly flawed character. Hades, another like the daddy issues, bro. Hercules had flaws. Dude, my man is all flaws.
Escapism
Chainsaw Man.
6.
Yeah, but he wants to see some titties. What was it? My bad. What was that quote? I want to touch some boobs. Yeah, but he wants to touch some boobs. That's not a flawed character. That seemed like a perfect character to me.
The Far Cry games are actually pretty okay as escapist fantasies because the characters are pretty much blank slates with the exception of Jason Brody, and even in his case, he didn't really talk that much, especially not during gameplay, so it's still pretty easy to insert ourselves in his shoes, and there's a sort of
Right.
Because these developers don't understand that animation and sound design are extremely important to horror. If something sounds goofy or looks goofy, boom, immersion is destroyed. So to try to get back to my main point, as I've been just rambling for likely over 30 minutes at this point, all of this stuff destroys my escapism. Whether it's the wokeness, or the destroying of my childhood games, and making shitty sequels with Tumblrina tier characters, it's hard for me to just get lost in a game anymore, man. And I think this is the reason why I had so much backlash to my Starfield is gonna be a disappointment video. Because Bethesda games really do offer that unique immersion angle that most other games don't. Even if they do have some amount of subliminal messaging in them, and maybe this isn't the best example seeing as it's an Obsidian game, but I think it still counts, Fallout New Vegas obviously offered a bunch of different ideologies in that game. And unlike pretty much any other game,
Wait a second.
And on top of that, a major story point is Ellie and Big Schnot.
Whoa!
Indie side of things, I can cut these guys some slack. It's deeper and deeper. There's a reason why pretty much everyone hated this game. As for the indie side of things, I can cut these guys some slack because on some level, I do believe that there's nothing wrong with making your creative vision as long as it's a unique IP that you came up with. But it is a shame when you have a game like A Hat in Time, which on the surface, you're just playing as a little girl in a collectathon 3D platformer adventure, and it's a great game. I'd recommend it to anybody who's a fan of the genre. But of course, there is a trans flag in the game.
No! No! My escapism? Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I kind of think what he just wants to really escape from is just like kind of minorities. And obviously he brings up other things here. Like obviously if a game's bad, you can't sink into it because you're thinking a lot about how the game's bad. But it's just like seeing like a trans flag breaks your, you know, trans people are real, right? They're like people in the game. Some of them could be trans. That's definitely a possibility. Woke leftism in our fantasy world. So true.
Game. And look, I've now had to cut 2 rants too edgy for YouTube about
What the fuck? What did you say?
this specific issue. So I'll just try and put it as plainly as possible. At best, this is widely misplaced virtue signaling, which is completely worthless. It means nothing, but at least Twitter can be happy, right? And at worst, it's grooming, plain and simple. This is a game for children. And yes, it is mainly enjoyed by man-children and likely a lot of trans women who want to be children or have relations with children. But it does not belong in a kid-friendly game, period. And then, of course, you have Celeste, where...
There it is. They can't keep it in their pants. It always has to come out. Oh no. Somebody mentioned identity. Must be grooming. Hey guys, I got something for you. If you're not looking at the screen, look at the screen real quick. This is gonna be crazy. I promise you. Wait, you ready? Ooga booga boom, you've been groomed. You've been groomed, loser. You just got groomed. How does it feel? It's over. It's fucking over for you. You've been groomed. Go ahead, close out of the stream. Go ahead, unfollow, unsubscribe, leave. Go ahead, report the stream. You can't do anything about it. Nothing can ungroom you. It's too late. Cry, piss your pants, shit. It doesn't matter. You will always be groomed. And it's over. Shark, why? Ooga booga! Ooga booga, you've been groomed! I know exactly what this word means. And I am very smart. Listen, just so you know, grooming is when non-straight white cis people exist. If those people who do not fall into that specific category only exist, that's when grooming happens. We all know that this is the case because I'm very smart and I'm not bigoted at all. I promise you. It's everybody else who's the problem, and it's not me because I'm normal. I'm very normal. And that's why I think when children know when that like people other than them or people even like them exist, that's literally grooming.
Where apparently the whole story is a metaphor for transition or something. And Signalis, which although I think is an awesome game, my second favorite game of last...
This one's gonna be crazy, okay? This is why I wanted to skip to this. This is the part of the video that wanted me to make like a video on this. Because this is the part that I think's crazy. This one's super funny. For one, it is true. Celeste is an allegory about transition. That part is factually true. Dude, I had no, like I've said it before, I'll say it again. I had no clue that Celeste was a story about transition. I had no clue that trans people existed when I played this game in 2017. When I got done with the story and then it's like Madeline and Theo like texting each other back and forth like over the internet or something. They were like on Discord calls. And then behind Madeline's monitor is like a little cup with a little like pink, blue, and white flag on it. I sat there and I thought to myself, I thought she was Canadian. What country flag is that? I thought this took place in Canada. And I just never thought about it again. And I continued and I played and I went back to go try and collect the B-sides. But little did I know I was groomed. Little did I know I was horribly groomed forever. Honestly, that's why I'm here. Actually, I thought you were American. Matrix once again. Yeah, people love queer stories. Here's the thing. People love queer stories. They do. They really do. Celeste is one of the like best-selling, best received and like biggest community indie games out there, period. Matrix has like has incredible impact on the world. I don't know, it's just really strange, right? Because oh wait, here before I get into my little rant, look what he has to say about Signalis.
Metaphor for transition or something.
No.
And Signalis, which although I think is an awesome game, my second favorite game of last year, at the end of the day, it's about space lesbians. Talk about kneecapping your psychological horror story, where in the end, it's about lesbian love. This is what I'm trying.
This is what I'm saying. I'm sorry, like you can't wiggle out of this. That what this is actually about is. He just wants to be free from seeing minorities. It's not about like making good games or making bad games or making good stories or making bad stories. He just wants to be free from seeing minorities. That's just kind of it. Right? Because if the game was like worse, like if the gameplay was literally worse, but at the end she was like, she had like a boyfriend instead of a girlfriend, the game, like what he's implying here is that the game would just be better, or at least more escapist, more immersive, something along those lines. Honestly, if Metroid came out today, I know, right? Guy is brain dead. Nah, I think he just doesn't like seeing. I think he just wants to be free from minorities. I don't think he's stupid. I think he knows exactly what he's thinking. Especially since he had to like cut other rants about like how gay people are like evil or something. Please let me escape to a world with only white people, please.
I tell you guys, I could probably come up with like a million examples from the past 5 or 6 years especially, but it just feels like it's impossible to escape people's ideology anymore. It's not that older games didn't have political undertones. Of course they did. A lot of games people love have huge political undertones, like BioShock, right?
I actually completely disagree. BioShock does not have political undertones. BioShock has political overtones. BioShock's like political tones, the devs crafted them into a mallet and they smash you over the head every time you look at something. There's no political, I mean, there's some undertones in BioShock, but they're not undertones. See, here's the thing is because like a lot of the, especially what you can see in like, it's incredibly explicit, everything that's going on. The critiques of religion, the critiques of like the socioeconomic systems, the critique of ideologies. It's literally right there, bro. In this BioShock, isn't there literally a character whose name is a play on the libertarian thinker Ayn Rand? I mean, like, it's okay if you're ignorant of Ayn Rand, but don't like pretend. Yeah, like Atlas. Yeah, Atlas, who's like named after Ayn Rand's book. Does Wolfenstein secretly have SJW overtones? Well, they don't like Nazis, so. Yeah, Andrew Ryan, who's his name is a play on Ayn Rand's name, and Atlas is a play on Ayn Rand's literal book, Atlas Shrugged. It's well, actually, I'm sorry, I can't even call that a play. It's literally just the name. Oh my goodness, Ayn Rand, Andrew Ryan. It's not. This is not big brain thinking that you have to like put together the pieces of over the course of like 3 months after you played the game. It's literally right there. If you're just ignorant of like politics and everything, then yeah, I would imagine. But like, also I would imagine like a dog would be ignorant of like what blenders do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that blenders are an undertone in your kitchen. They're literally sitting right there on the countertop. Andrews are not setting their best. Not necessarily, I must say, not necessarily. The name Andrew has me like, do not do that. But anyways, what was I gonna talk about? I thought this was like goofy though, because this is the same exact thing that like, because the things in BioShock are the same as in like Dead Space or whatever that he criticized earlier about them having signs everywhere. Yeah, remember how he was like, look at all this in your face signs everywhere? What he just means is that they're like minorities on the signs. It's literally just like, I can't believe they put these minorities on the signs and not, but like in BioShock, it's okay. Is it just because they're white or like what's, I actually don't know what's, I mean, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just incredibly strange. Peculiar even. Quite peculiar indeed. Yeah, people, I don't know, just people really like queer stories. And like the idea that these stories are bad or make games worse or something is just like not true. Hey, do I have anybody here who at least used to be an Overwatch fan? If you're still an Overwatch fan, you can chime in. But if you were like, if you used to be an Overwatch fan as well, can you type one in chat? Uno momento, pretty correctly. Yeah. So a lot of people remember when Overwatch 2 dropped and every single video on all the big videos on Overwatch 2 are like, this game is horrible. This game is completely ass. Do not touch this game. The Blizzard has ruined this game. This game will never be the same. This game is horrible. This game is 1 billion times worse than it ever has been. This, this, that, and the third. I learned the other day while like kind of looking into this a little bit that apparently Overwatch 2 is bigger than Overwatch 1 ever was. And it's 3 times larger than Overwatch 1 was, which I thought honestly was insane. Apparently Overwatch 2's daily player count, like their average daily player count, is 3 times higher than Overwatch 1's daily player count. Just like period, right? And on that fact, I think in the last 30 days, Overwatch had, would not have guessed that. Yeah. And apparently, like, in the last 30 days, Overwatch had 24 million unique players playing the game over the last 30 days, which is remarkable. It's crazy. Is Overwatch 2 free to play? It is free to play, but even like a free to play game can still like tank. I mean, I like multiverses. I think last time I checked, multiverses on Steam has a concurrent player count of 1,300 people. Simply because a game being free does not mean that it's going to be doing better, especially when like the most played games are paid games as well, right? And like here's the thing, like Overwatch 2, like Overwatch, the game has gotten more gay over time. So if this was true, like wouldn't Overwatch be doing worse over time if people like were so sick of the black and the gay and the woman? But like there are more women, more minority and more gay in Overwatch now than there like ever has been, and the game is now 3 times larger than the game ever was. I think that says something. You're joking? TF2 has more players than multiverses? Like concurrent players at the moment, I'm quite sure. But also, like, don't people still love TF2? And also, isn't like Counter-Strike having like a massive resurgence? I think like Steam games or Valve games are still popping off at this moment in time, if I remember correctly. Valve games are still going like absolutely wild nutty. Come here. Come here. Oh. Hi. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.